Ho, 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 ho. Welcome to Santa's World 365 because I am Santa Claus 365 days a year, and that's just a fact. So I just came in. I was about to take the frock off, and I dawned on me that I had promised y'all that I was going to tell you all about the elves, where they came from, how they became part of Santa's world. And I just kind of got sidetracked with life. There's a lot going on. It's only just a little stretch before the big day, or the big night, I should say. Actually, big day and night, but that's another story altogether. And I thought, well, I got a little sidetracked, but maybe I need to get a little back on the path. Also, those of you who've asked me about doing lives, I will continue to do lives. I've just had a lot going on lately. This beard. It needs some attention. It needs some attention. And it will get the attention that it rightly deserves. Okay, so the elves. Those wonderful little creatures, the elves. First, right out of the gate, I'm going to tell you, just boom, they're shapeshifters. Yes, they are shapeshifters, but not reptilian shapeshifters. Although there's room in the story to tell about the reptilians. Trust me, there is. So, I should probably, let me rewind us all the way back to the very, very beginning of meeting them. And what I was doing at the time. Year would have been about 1035. And I was actually living in the Faroe Islands at the time. And I was involved that particular day in what's called the Grind. And that is basically a whale hunt. And we were hunting whales and dolphins. Technically, all whales are dolphins. And let me tell you just a little behind the scenes on that. So if you don't know, the Faroe Islands are about 90 miles north of Scotland in the North Atlantic. And it's an amazing place, a magical place, really. So that was kind of like the home to, at that time, especially 1035, right around the time of the last great Faroese king, and when the Vikings were, doing the Viking things. So starting off the right way. No, I don't. Oh my God, I don't want to back this up, Santa. You're no longer a Viking. So, so we're hunting whales. And the way this works is a whale pod enters a fjord, and everybody sounds the alarm. The first people that spot it are, woo! It tells everybody the whale pod's coming into the fjord. And then men would get into boats, get behind the whale pod, and push the whales into the shallows. Yeah. Then you have different teams, and one of the teams had a hook. I shouldn't probably tell this story. I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to. Okay, if whaling upsets you, please do not watch this. It's just hunting, but that's just my opinion. So we're hunting the whales. A whale pod enters the fjord, and I personally went to get into one of the boats to help push the whales further into the fjord and towards the shallows. And in the shallows there would be, we'll just call them the hunters. I'm not going to get graphic into how that whole process works. Been working that way though for many, many, many years. So I get in one of my craft, or basically I don't mean not really thought of it as like it's a small craft, okay. And when I got into the small craft, something really bizarre happened. A flash of light hit me from above. Flash of light, bright, super, super bright. And I am just disoriented. I just have no clue what's going on. And the next thing that I know, I'm no longer in the boat. I'm no longer part of the Grind. Yeah. Santa was abducted. That's exactly what happened. I was abducted. It's weird thinking back about it now because, over the centuries, you hear the alien abductions and all of this stuff. And you just think, that's crazy because there was a time uh, previous to that particular day where I lived a normal life. I lived a normal life, and I had a clan that I dwelled with, and it was just normal life, and it could be brutal, and it was brutal, but it was normal. All of a sudden, my life was not normal at all. There was a time when I was normal. Now there's a time where I'm not. So I wake up in what I couldn't really even wrap my head around, couldn't describe. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. Knowing now what I know, it was a alien spaceship or craft, a spacecraft. And I'm laying there on a steel table, and it was cold, really, really cold. And I had, previous to being abducted, been wearing furs, dressed warm, because the boat, the craft that I was going to get into, or was getting into, to push the whale pod. It's cold, and the North Atlantic is brutal. And if you're not dressed properly, you're going to be. I had skins on, all kinds of things, but now all of a sudden I had nothing on. Laying on this table, ice cold table, staring up at a light. I didn't see anybody around me. I had no clue where I was at. I was in shock. It's the only thing I could really describe it as is shock. So I tried to get up off the table, and I couldn't move at all. It was like I was glued onto this metal table, unable to get off, unable to move. I could turn my head this way, I could turn my head this way, but I couldn't lift my head up. So, unbeknownst to me at the time, the Elven were on the ship with me. The Elves were part of the crew of the ship, but not a willing part of the crew. The Elves were they were abducted much of the same way I was, except they were conscripted into becoming they were shanghaied. They were shanghaied. So they were really reluctant participants to this situation. The craft was piloted by a creature that some would recognize today as an alien. Big eyes, just huge eyes, kind of a big elongated head, super skinny body, 3 fingers that were kind of like hands were like that. And they communicated. There was 3 of them. They communicated by telepathic means. So they didn't speak like we would speak. They just thought it, and they could communicate with one another. Now, there's 3 of them that were running this craft. I didn't know this at that particular moment, but that's what was going on. The Elves were they were maintenance. They were operators of different functions. They had been taught how to do that. But they were abducted from their home planet. Yeah, they were abducted just like I was. And I don't know, to be completely honest, how long they'd been on that ship, but I think for a little while. The ship's hull had the corpses of various creatures, including humans. So I can only assume that at some point I would have been in the hull with the corpses. I can only assume that. What I didn't know, that I can happily tell you now, is that the Elves were planning a mutiny. Yeah, they weren't happy with the situation. The ship was, what I found out later, was referred to as a cedar ship. This cedar ship had previously went and seeded different planets with different livestock. And then on their way back from doing the seeding, they were taking samples of the livestock that they had previously seeded to see how they were doing, the health of the herd, and all of that. And when I say the health of the herd, I'm even talking me, That's why I was abducted. I was part of the herd that they had seeded in a previous venture, just keeping an eye on things, because at some point, and this is going to be really super hard to wrap your head around, but at some point, they were going to come back and harvest. That's what they were going to do. I don't know all the details for good reason, and you'll figure that out in a minute. Or maybe not a minute, but you'll figure it out fairly soon. Let me get a deep breath here, because I'm reliving things that happened hundreds of years ago, but it's so fresh in my mind because it was that traumatic. It really was. So let me get past the whole herd and harvesting and food crops and seeding and all. I just want to get past all that. That is what it is. Well, I'll say one more thing about that. I don't know at what point they plan on coming back. They do come back to Earth periodically, like they do the other planets that have been seeded. They come back to Earth periodically to keep an eye on the herd, and at some point, they'll harvest. I don't know what that point is. I don't know if it's at 10 billion people, 20 billion people. I really have no idea. But I do know at some point, there's going to be a reckoning. There's going to be a harvest. And it could be tomorrow. It could be 200 years, 2,000 years from now. I don't know. But I do know this. Yeah, they're coming and they're going to harvest. Yeah. So I know it's grim, and it's supposed to be happy. Hopefully you don't have any of your youngsters watching any of this. I'm just trying to tell you, I want to be honest about this. These stories have never been told before. I mean, the stories that have been told about the elves, other than the Norse folklore, have been pretty much cartoonish type of stuff. But this is the real deal. So let me get to the elves. I did not know this at the time because I was on this table in shock, bewildered, not understanding what's going on, coming from a very primitive, in comparison, a very primitive life to now I'm on a spacecraft. I mean, I didn't know that's what it was, but I mean, I was just like, oh my God. I didn't know this at the time. The elves were planning a mutiny. They were planning on freeing themselves. They weren't entirely sure how they were going to manage that, but they did know one thing. They were done with what their situation was. Now, elves have all kinds of very unique talents and powers, which is why they were using them to actually help run the ship. Elves have the ability to levitate. Elves have the ability to shapeshift. Okay, shapeshift into whatever. An elf, if he wants to, with very few constraints, can look like me. He can shapeshift into looking like Santa Claus. And even though they're very small, they can manipulate matter to the point where, they can do all kinds of stuff. They're very talented. They're engineering minded. But some people would call what they do magic, and some people would not. But I will tell you this, it can be very magical. There's no doubt about it. I love those elves. So, maybe because, look, without the elves, I would have been a corpse in the holding part of the ship. I literally, they would have dissected me and decided, well, yeah, things are looking great. Who knows where they were going to deposit the corpses that were on that ship? I don't have any idea. And I don't believe the elves do either, because they've never told me, and I've never asked. Maybe I should ask. Oh, God. So anyway, the elves, they have no ill will towards anybody. They can be tricksters. I'm not saying that. A lot of the Norse folklore is based on some of that. They do get bored easily. They have ADD like you've never seen. And yeah, sometimes they like to play tricks. And sometimes people might get a little annoyed by that. I'm looking forward to... Anyway. So, the next thing that I know, alarms are going, brr, 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 man, just rattling and noise like you just would not believe. It was crazy. What the elves had done was they had sabotaged the ship. And the ship, although it wasn't very high, it was hovering fairly low into the Faroe Islands. The ship started to list in the air, and started to go down. Not hard, not fast, but it was going to make an impact. And it looked to where, I couldn't see squat, but I remember where I was abducted. I kind of have some ideas of where this ship may have been. I mean, I've had hundreds of years to think about this. It starts to list. I could feel it listing. And I was by the way, I was a very young man at the time. I think I was 25 years old, maybe 24 years old, and was working my way up the whale hunting hierarchy. At some point, I wanted to make my thing. I had made my whaling knife, and I wanted to be, well, anyway, it doesn't matter. I wanted to be part of that as opposed to the guys in the boats pushing the pie. If you've never had whale meat, it's delicious. Here to tell you. Okay, so the craft list, and then I could feel an impact, but it didn't feel like it was impacting Earth. I believe what was impacting was going into the ocean. Okay, so it was going into the ocean, which, I'm a great swimmer, but I don't know how to, I don't even know where I'm at. And it goes into the ocean and goes down to the bottom of the ocean. Now, the North Atlantic is not super deep. And to be honest I won't get too much into the weeds here, but the North Atlantic is not super deep. It is, however, cold. Very, very cold. And, some people would argue that, but I believe it's very, very cold. I've been in the North Atlantic. It is cold. So, the aliens were trying to salvage the ship, and they were having a very difficult time of it. Meanwhile, the Elven was planning their escape from the ship. And, I will always, deep in my heart, be thankful and grateful for this. 3 of the elves came to get me. They knew where I was at. They knew I was there. And they didn't want me to die in that craft. They got me. And they took me with them. And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I just could not believe it. These elves, oh my God. I'll have to tell that story another time, but there just was nothing that I'd ever seen before. Some of them were oh God, how can I put this? They're all of the same race. They're all of the same breed or, genetic makeup. But because they're shapeshifters, they can shift into different things. So some of them looked like Doberman pinchers. And I think they were preparing to repel any kind of attack from the actual aliens. And but anyway, we were getting out of the ship. They had an escape pod for us. Actually, they had about 5 escape pods. And I'm trying to remember how many elves, including me, were on there. I think there was 20 elves per pod. So I think 100 elves. We get out. And I felt this going up. And then I felt like a bobber. Poof, okay. And then I blacked out. I completely blacked out. The level of shock that I had to have been in, it's probably beyond words. Yeah. So that is the very beginning, and we're almost at 20 minutes now. I'm not going to continue this. I will come back, and I will tell a part 2, part 3, part 4, whatever. But that is the very, very beginning of my experience in meeting with and interacting with extraterrestrials, elves, I hope that you are interested in following with this story. If you wouldn't mind, I would really appreciate it if you would actually share this. Share it to as many people as you can. I would like to be able to tell the story to as many people as I can. Yeah. So there you have it. I'll try to dress up a little bit better the next time. Like I said, I just came in. I was taking off the suit, and I decided to go ahead and start telling the story of the elves. I'm not going to do this story in live, so this will be a standalone video. Feel free to share that video. You can even post it. I don't care. You know, it's Santa's World 365 on TikTok. Right now it's only TikTok. I tell you what, I had me some cookies earlier, and the problem was I chased it with some milk. And Santa's lactose intolerance now, so that probably was not good. I had to have me some cookies. I just did. Okay. I will be back. Keep an eye on things. Santa's World 365. Share. Sharing is caring. Yeah. And do all of the things. Because you know Santa loves you.